Well, I know that you really like Bella and Edward together. So I have to say, when I got to New Moon and I got to the chapter for the breakup, literally I walked over to Tara and went, what? What happened? And she goes, keep going. It gets better. And I go, well, I want to jump to the end just to make sure Edward's there, because I don't know that I can continue reading it. And now that you get through it, you know just how important that part of it was to the storyline with Jacob and Bella and that relationship and how that grew. But how did you write that? Because that was just heartbreaking for me to just even read it.
A lot of people ask, have you ever been dumped really badly? Did you ever go through that? And I really haven't. I got dumped a couple of times, but they weren't boys that was like, I knew that wasn't, this isn't the one. This is the guy I'm going to be with forever. It was like, okay, yeah, well, this was limited anyway. And so I really had to just imagine what Bella would feel losing Edward. Not losing some boy, but losing Edward. So it's straight from the imagination.
Yeah.
But I was bawling. And I told all of my friends who I'd met, with Twilight, when it first got started, I really could talk to people more. And so there are a couple friends that I've held on to from that period of time, and I said, you have to read it twice. Just promise me that you will read it twice, because the first time you're so worried, is he coming back? When is he coming back? And you can't appreciate the middle section.
Yeah, I didn't appreciate Jacob until I read it my second time. I'm like, whatever. I really don't like him. And then I read it through again, and I'm like, aw, he's so cute.
I read it two times through without knowing that you wanted us to read it 2 times through, actually. I was on vacation, and I read it through, and I went to try to find something else to read afterwards, and I was like, no. So I picked it up and read it again. My friend that was on vacation with me was like...
Yeah, all my friends that, one of them had read just the beginning and the end, because they're like, but Edward. And I'm like, no, you have to read the middle. You'll appreciate so much more if you read it through all the way. And, you just gotta stick with it.
That's my disclaimer. Every time I hand somebody New Moon, I'm like, okay, you have to read the whole thing. Stick through the middle, no matter what you think about what happened, stick through it.
I don't know why it was such a hard time for me to get over the werewolf concept. It's a book about vampires, but when werewolves were introduced, I was like, that's a little far-fetched. Even though the first book had alluded to it, and I had completely missed that. And then when I went back and reread Twilight, I was like, oh my gosh, it was right there in front of my face. It was going to be werewolves.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, Edward.
Yeah.
Although for me, I think that werewolves, I had the same reaction. And to me, it seemed really natural that Bella wouldn't think that automatically, because I don't go around thinking, well, that guy's kind of funny, I wonder if he's a werewolf. And Bella's so practical. I was really surprised to be like, oh, of course, she should have known way before. I'm like, why would you think that? You know this person. I was surprised that people didn't feel that way, that everyone didn't think, oh, where did this come from?
I was completely blindsided.
Well, when you wrote the dream in the first book, was it like you didn't planning it? Or?
I didn't know Jacob. It sounds really funny, but it honestly feels like I didn't know it, but he did. I didn't know he was a werewolf. When I wrote that, that's an actual Quileute legend. They do believe that they descended from wolves. And so I thought it kind of worked in nicely, because everyone knows werewolves and vampires are enemies. And it was really hard to come up with a way for Bella to find out, because I just couldn't see Edward saying the words. How do you say it? By the way, I'm a vampire. You just can't. There was no way he was going to get that out. So I needed her to find out some other way, and here were these stories that were so perfect. And then as I was working on the other sequel that that I'm not going to ever use, that's when I realized, oh, he's a werewolf. Oh, okay. It was like it had been that way all along, and I just didn't know. It was a really interesting feeling. It was the same way with Rosalie, where I could not get her character. She was just pretty wallpaper until one day it was like, oh, she doesn't like Bella. And then her whole character sprang to life then, when I realized that. It was like she'd been keeping it a secret from me. It's so funny how they're just so real in my head. It's like they really are real people and have their whole stories.